Did you guys enjoy the screening? Yeah. All right, everyone, please help me welcome our moderator for this evening, Chance Agard from Entertainment Weekly.
Hi guys, I'm Chancellor Agard from Entertainment Weekly, and welcome to the For Life panel. I guess without further ado, let's bring out the cast and producers of the show. Our lead, Nicholas Pinnock and Joy Bryant. Writer, Sanae Hoffman. Executive producer, Doug Robinson, Hank Steinberg, and Isaac Wright Jr. So how are you guys doing today?
Great, great.
Good.
I want to start with Isaac. I mean, this entire show is inspired by your remarkable life. I'm curious, how does it feel to sort of watch a show that you helped sort of bring to life?
It's an incredible feeling. One of the most profound things about watching the show is reflecting back on the reality of my experience. I fought so long, so hard for myself and for so many people that I never got a chance to reflect on my own pain. And so being able to sit back, going through the motions of making the show, and being able to sit back and watch it for myself was pretty therapeutic. It allowed me to kind of contemplate and watch my suffering as a third person. And so it was an amazing experience and very therapeutic, yeah.
Hank and Doug, I would love to hear from you guys. I mean, how did this show come to life? Could you walk me through that process?
I knew 50 Cent a little bit and was fortunate enough to get a phone call from him one day saying, I think I have a story you might be interested in, and I've tried it with a couple of writers, and maybe you could help me out on it, and introduced us to Isaac. And then Hank has been a neighbor of mine for a long time and somebody that I've wanted to work with for a long time. And I was like, I think there's a story that really might be interesting, that's inspiring, and I think can resonate and actually have some importance. And he came up with an incredible take on how to do the show. And then we were fortunate enough for Hank to write a great script and put a great cast together and a great writing staff together, and got to make this.
What was that first meeting with Isaac like, when you guys sort of sat down with him and talked it all through?
Well, Doug had brought the story to me, and on the face of it, it was incredibly inspiring. But until I went to New York and sat with Isaac, and we sat for 3 or 4 hours the first time, and that was like, okay, this is chapter 1 of a 16 chapter meeting. We just barely got through the first layer of it, and I realized, what I learned from him, which I understood could make the show so fascinating, was the incredibly textured milieu of the prison and how complicated the ecosystems are there, and that I knew that would not only be his story would be inspiring, but that setting would be so interesting. The fact that he had become a prison paralegal and had learned in prison the laws that govern the prison and how to defend his fellow inmates. I said, I've never seen that character before, who does that, and that there's a jail within the jail if you have infractions. So I thought, that's going to be so cool to see that, and have him talk about what it is to survive every day in prison. That being a lawyer wasn't just about how he was going to get himself out, but it was how he was going to have a commodity to trade with to keep himself from getting killed. Because he was not someone who was a natural, criminal, and he's in there with many people who were wrongly accused, many people who were overcharged, also some dangerous people, and the prison system creates something very difficult to just get through the day. And I thought, okay, he's a lawyer in the day, and by night he's just trying to survive one day, 1 week to the next, and I knew that could be such a cool setting for a show, and ultimately be a way through his human experience, through the experience of Aaron Wallace, who was inspired by Isaac, to get at the humanity that exists in all of these people in the prison.
And so when you get a story like this, I guess how do you start to sort of turn this into a TV show? I guess how did you figure out what this would look like as a TV show on a week-to-week basis?
There were two things that we were trying to figure out. Doug and I sat for a bunch of meetings, which is where do we set it? Because we know what ultimately happens to him is that he gets out and he becomes a lawyer, and now he's out. And so we said, well, should he already be out, and should we flash back, or do we start with his arrest and then follow his journey? And I thought, well, we couldn't figure it out. And then I one day, I sort of put it away for months, and I literally sat down to kind of meditate one day, and it came to me, which is we start on his first case. We start with him looking in the mirror. We don't know who he is or what he's doing there. We think he's a lawyer, and then we use that voiceover to bring us into his backstory. And so it allowed us to, once I figured that out, I called Doug and Allison, and I said, I got
the
it.
opening, and that was the beginning of it.
That was it.
It's like, I think I have the opening of the show, and it kind of just all took off from there.
And Nicholas and Joy, I mean, when you guys are looking at projects, what do you look for in a script? And for this project, what attracted you to it specifically?
For me, first of all, it's the writing. Did I say something wrong? No, for me, first of all, it's the writing. And Hank delivered a wonderful draft that I read that I wanted to be a part of. And then on top of that, you have a wonderful story like Isaac's that you're just drawn to and you feel you have to be a part of.
Yeah, same for me. Like when I first read the script, I had no idea that this was inspired by Isaac and his story. I read a really amazing script that was compelling and really drew me in, and I really connected to because of my life and my personal connection to having had family members who are formerly incarcerated, and also having two really good friends whose partners are formerly incarcerated, and knowing what it was like for them and the journey they took. So from the page, and just also this being the right show at the right time, I knew it was something that I wanted to be a part of, and I'm very thank you for casting me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. We feel very blessed. I mean, it doesn't matter how good the script is if you don't have the right actors who are committed. And what both of them do so beautifully, what they bring to it is they're not worried about, am I likable? Do I have to protect my character? Do I have to be the smartest person in the room in every scene? They both allow us to draw complex characters who have flaws and weaknesses and strengths, and you root for them and you like them, and they both have such gravitas. You feel their connection, I think, that they really are. We're a married couple, or now, trying to figure out what's next. But they bring so much to it. Every day I go to the set and I see what they bring to the dialogue, that if I've written it, if Sinead's written it, or one of the other writers, and it's just, wow, I thought that was pretty good on the page, and then I see them say it, and it's, whoa, that's something even better than we thought.
And Sinead, this show feels in line with a lot of what you've done already with American Crime, Pearson, Daredevil to an extent as well. I'm curious, what did you bring from those experiences into this writing room, do you think, and how did those inform your approach to the show in writing?
Well, it wasn't so much my prior credits. It was just my personal experience. And, I've expressed this to Hank and the other writers. There was a lot of trepidation in approaching this job and approaching this episode with Joy, who was just so brilliant. I'm just so grateful to her. But for me, I have a sibling who has spent the majority of his life incarcerated, and I love him more than almost anyone in the world. And I thought, well, I can pass on this job because this is it's pretty tough because you're having to relive it, and you got to tap into, some of those past memories in order to do your best work on the page, which a lot of writers do. We use our personal experiences, and there were jobs that I had passed on in the past because I just wasn't ready or willing to go there. But I think, for me and for all of us, you reach a point where you think, okay, well, maybe I can just kind of parlay these experiences to maybe help someone else, to maybe make some kind of a difference, because you don't want your pain to be for nothing. And so I thought, I'm gonna leap, and I'm gonna take this job. And then when Hank approached me about the Marie episode, I thought, okay, well, this is getting way too close. This is out of my comfort zone. But then I thought, I want to do this. And you can't help when you write, and when you write something so close to your own experience. For example, the scene where Marie is on the floor of the courthouse bathroom and she's vomiting and she's crying, that's a page from my own life, and when I was on set, and Joy just so brilliantly delivered, it was hard to watch, but I was also very grateful, because I thought, I am not the only person who was on the floor of the courthouse bathroom at some point. And so for me, when I think about my personal experience in bringing this, it's representing the families. It's giving voice to all of the families who are affected by incarcerated loved ones. They are the silent sufferers, and the large majority of people affected are women, and they are women of color, because most of our inmates are men of color, are Black men, followed by Latino men. And so it is very tough for them, and they sacrifice a lot, financially and emotionally and mentally. I mean, the emotional and mental fallout is devastating, and it's not something that is dramatized on television. And it's really time to give voice to these families, so that we all understand that it is the people behind bars, but it's also the families to a certain extent, are in there with them every day. They're driving hours every week to see their family members, and they're giving their last $5 so that these people can call home. That's kind of what I contributed.
Joy, what was your reaction when you first got the script and read through it and saw what you'd be?
For this episode?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I was so excited that Sine wrote it, so I was just really excited to work with her. And we sat and we just talked a lot about her life and my life in relation to the story, and what works, what we can kind of play around with. And I felt I was in really good hands with her, and we make a good team. So
Thank you.
I was just getting ready. I was ready to go.
Can I just add to just a little bit, because most of the world doesn't know that Joy is a very, very talented writer herself. And so we were able to sit down and have a conversation as writers. And Joy was able to, we had a couple of pitching sessions, and it was really, really great to talk to Joy, not only as an actor, but as a writer, and for her to say, you know what, maybe this scene is more about this or more about that. And so, we were able to infuse a lot of what we came up with in our pitching session, which was really, really great.
Is there a scene that comes to
Oversteak
mind?
Fritz and oysters, right? Yeah.
Is there a specific scene that comes to mind that came out of those discussions?
There were a couple. I think probably that divorce scene. The scene when Marie asked for the divorce. It was almost there, but Joy and I had some conversations about what it was really, really about. And it wasn't about the fact that she didn't love Aaron anymore, but more about, this was about her and her life, and trying to salvage some part of a life for herself and for her daughter. And yeah, I think we were able to, when I went back with Hank, and Hank had the vision for this episode long before the writing staff. His vision was, he knew he wanted to do a Marie episode day one of writing. He came and he said, and I remember he said, the first line is, I used to think I was blessed. Like, he knew the first line. And so we were able to kind of go deeper with that divorce scene, for example, when we met.
I remember when you pitched me the line, "You're behind a window," and that was like, the thing that I think encapsulates what it is for the families, and that the barrier. I mean, even the idea that in so many prisons, they still have to talk through a window. I mean, and you'll see in the course of the episode, in the show, there's another flashback episode later where you see Aaron's first 9 years in prison and what that was before Sophia Masri, the more progressive warden, came in. So for years and years, they were behind that window until she came in and said, we're taking down that window so they can at least hug each other. And this is one of the things that I think is the power of storytelling through just this family. You can say, wow, and it comes up a lot. We wanted to make it a big deal just every time, it's 3 hours to get up there, and it's a strain on Jasmine. How can she get up if she's pregnant now? She's trying to be in high school. And for some people, that's close. I mean, there's an outrageous thing that happens in real life, which is people get sent, to a different state out of prison, 10 hours away, even farther.
My friend pretty much had to take planes, trains, and automobiles to see her partner. She was living in one state, he was 5 states away, very far.
Yeah, we have a law against inhumane punishment. That is inhumane punishment. I mean, there's no reason for it except something that must be bureaucratic or financially driven. Isaac can speak to that.
I mean, in the state and federal system, it's actually it works out different when it comes to where a person is going to be in prison. If you look at your particular state, if you take Georgia, for instance, Georgia has prisons throughout the state in different areas, and so for some people it may be 15 minutes. For others, it may be 3 or 4 hours, depending on where that prison is. Well, when you take the United States, you got to look at the United States like Georgia. It's the entire country. So when they send a person that's been convicted of a federal crime to a prison, it can be in any state in the country. And sometimes that winds up, a person is convicted in Georgia, and he may wind up in Minnesota or in California or in Dakota. Because for the country itself, you can go anywhere. You committed a federal crime, so you can wind up in any state in the country. And that puts a huge, huge burden, obviously, on families and their ability to support and to visit and things like that. And that's one thing in terms of federal crimes that actually has to change. Most people should be housed, and they have the facilities to do it, should be housed closer to family.
And Nicholas, I want to talk to you because you're playing this character inspired by Isaac. I'm curious, can you talk to me about the first time you two met and what you guys talked about and what you sort of took away from that meeting and sort of bringing this character to life?
We met almost a year ago, and it was.
I think a little more than that.
Huh?
I think it's been a little more than that.
Yeah,
right?
possibly. But it was at the first table read for the pilot episode, and we were all gathered in this room, and then he came in, and I made a beeline for him, and I just grabbed him and said, "I need to talk to you." We went literally. I think that was the first thing that he said.
Yeah.
He said, "I need to talk to you." So we went into this room for about 40, 50 minutes, and I bombarded him with a barrage of questions, and there was nothing he wouldn't answer. Nothing was off the table. And I was, listening to his cadence and watching his mannerisms and asking him certain questions about court and, procedure and things, and just all these random questions that he was happy to answer anything. And so previous to that, having read the script and prepped for the table read, to give this performance, sat down at a table by reading the script, you go in with one idea just to start the spark of the character to, build on. And after speaking to Isaac, it completely changed. I went back to the table and I rethought how I was going to approach the character, and that was the the catalyst and the impetus for me to go on and have more conversations with Hank and with George Tillman, who directed the pilot, and that's how we got what you saw up there today.
I'm curious, I mean, what from that conversation really, I guess, what specifically sort of shifted things in your mind, do you remember?
It was a number of things. It was too many to kind of to talk about, but it was a lot of it was, character things like his gestures, the way he sat, and the way he moved his hands, and he had a ring on his finger. I asked him to show me his hands, and he had a ring on his finger. And I said, I need that ring. I need that ring because I knew that we had some flashbacks coming, and I wanted to have an essence of the real inspiration for the show with me while I was filming, and it makes a complete difference. So it was just more about drawing inspiration, and it was just there were certain things that I didn't know about, the criminal system and how things worked, and so in certain scenes you have an idea as to what you want to do, but when you're given certain aspects of information, it can shift that slightly. But what you gifted me that day shifted everything a lot.
Thank you. And
Thank
by
you.
the way, the most incredible job that I've ever seen in my life. And y'all have seen it. He is a profound actor, and I have to say this. One of the things that made this very, very therapeutic for me is because in watching him perform, it was exactly like I was watching myself. I was literally seeing myself in the mirror. He did an incredible job, and he's as you will see in these next episodes, he's going to continue to push the bar. Incredible, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hank, so far this season, I think Aaron has had, one true victory in court, so far. I'm curious, can you talk a bit about sort of how you and the writer sort of balance this sort of, the way you guys depict a struggle, giving him small victories and having him lose at points, and how you sort of balance that, I guess?
I mean, it's a nice way to bring people into the pilot, to have him, win that first one, and to feel good about that. And then the first thing we said was, okay, we can't. It's 2020. He's not Perry Mason. He cannot win every episode. That's not true, and it's not real. It won't be exciting. It won't be interesting. And we also wanted to really enforce the fact that he's a novice. Unlike on other law shows. He learned, not from professors and not from other students and colleagues, and he learned in prison, so he has to make mistakes. And the other thing is that he has, that is very different from any other lawyer on any other law show, is he's taking cases that are going to push forward his own agenda. So he's going to have difficult moral decisions to make about, do I do what's right for the client, or do I do what's right for the character? And that's going to come up repeatedly. There are also episodes that we have coming up which it really strikes at what Sinead and I have talked about so much, about the humanity of the prisoners, where one episode is just about a guy. He's a sympathetic character. He killed someone by accident in a drunk driving accident. He was heavily charged, and his fiance is dying of cancer, and Aaron just has to decide, while he's in a very important moment in his own case, should he take the time away from that and represent this inmate to try to get him to have the right to marry his fiance. And all it would require is the prison board letting his fiance come into the prison for 45 minutes and get married. It's something that is very, very important to them, because they're people and their lives matter, even though this guy made one mistake. And so that's a law case that you wouldn't see on another show, and yet it feels as important as any of the other bigger cases that he has, that he to somehow deliver that for this prisoner. And I mean, Sinead can talk about the other kinds of things that that these prisoners struggle with. It's just the daily things that we try to capture in the details of commissary, phone privileges, all these kinds of things that we, don't even know about.
Yeah, I mean, just adding to that, there's an episode, and I think it might be the same when, the inmates are not allowed to use the phone because there are some prison politics, and, you just imagine not being able to talk to your family for weeks on end,
And not being able to explain to them why,
and
because
not
one
being
day the phone
able-
just doesn't
right.
ring.
It just doesn't ring, and on the other side of it, going back to the families, your first thought is, oh my goodness, my loved one is hurt or in solitary confinement, could be dead. It's not like you get the phone call right away, because these men and women that are incarcerated, for the most part, they're just a number. They are a ward, and are not treated as if not treated the way we are treated. And so, and just basic things, being able to go to the commissary to get a Snickers bar. We can go into a store and buy a Snickers bar, but that's, for a lot of these inmates, that is light to them, to have that snack. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of light in their day to hear the voice of your family member, to buy yourself a snack, to get a book from Amazon. These are all something that seems so just kind of inconsequential to us is so major to them, and I think we really wanted to underscore that in this show, and hopefully, along with telling a really good story and entertaining people and hopefully making you laugh and cry, there is enough outrage so that we can all try and do something about this.
And in the case of our show, just to give you guys a little something to look forward to, when they don't have access to the phone banks anymore, it's because 50 Cent comes into the show and his character wreaks havoc on the
Takes
prison.
control.
So it really heats up when he comes in and is worth watching.
With that, I think we have opened it up to the audience for questions.
I have a question. What happened when everybody laughed? We were, we were all behind behind the screen. That was nervous laughter, excitement.
What you mean when Darius proved himself not to be the best friend of Aaron?
It's going down.
So my question is kind of for all of you, like when it came to making the show and having an like the person who went through the experience, how did you have checks and balances to ensure like you're telling a faithful story as well as giving a very convincing and compelling story for people to continue watching?
Well, it started, first of all, I have Isaac as the greatest resource and asset, and then it started with who was the writing staff that I was going to have, help support me. I had an idea about what I wanted to do. My first hire was Sine. I was like, Sine, I have to have you. I think I practically got down on a knee. I don't think I had a ring. Because it was not only that, it was like moved from LA to New York. It was a big sacrifice. And then one of our other writers, David Feiga, was a former public defender in the Bronx who had tried cases hundreds of times in that same courthouse where we shot. So he's someone who's on our staff. We have another young black writer, Lee Colston, who was a prison guard himself for 6 years, and his father had been a prison guard. So, we wanted to surround ourselves with, people who each one would bring a different perspective and bring a lot of truth and their own personal perspective to the storytelling. And I think that's hopefully what you feel when you watch the show, that it feels right, that it feels lived. And even if you don't really know what that is hopefully something, about it feels right. And one of the things we also did was just, shots that you would normally cut in other shows, people walking down the hall from one room to another or to the parking lot from their job. Like, those are all the things that are first things that are going to get cut. And we shot the first couple of episodes. We had so much to film and we didn't have time. I said, all right, he doesn't need to walk from here to there. And then we realized when we saw them, we need to see him walk from here to there, because the walk from here to there, being handed from one guard through one door, through another door, to another guard, to another hallway, to another door, it really reinforces what that is, what that feels like to live in that environment for days, weeks, months, years. Sure.
Hi, my name is Olivia Webb. I'm a dramatic writing grad student at SCAD Savannah, and I also work with incarcerated persons, and so I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get emotional. Thank you for believing in this project and for showing how broken our system is and the things that the family and the inmates go through. And Mr. Isaac, thank you for your bravery and your self-advocacy, because there are so many people that are taken advantage of, both innocent and guilty and everywhere in between. And so I just want to say thank you all for advocating for these people.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I just want to reiterate what the last person just said. I had heard about the show, but had not watched it because, as you have mentioned, it's just too close, and I didn't want to be reminded. So I just thank you, because I think you hit this on the mark. It's very real. I didn't see anything that I thought was exaggerated and not realistic. So I think you did an outstanding job, and it was awesome. So now I'm going to watch it. I feel like I'm ready to now. So thank you.
Hey, we have time for one more question.
Right here.
Hello, my name is Derwin Hayden. I am an animation major, and one of the questions I have is, what are some of the techniques that you use to really capture the viewer? Because when I was watching it, I had no idea who the character was, yet I was taken on this ride. It wasn't too much for me, and I was really just captured to watch it all the way through.
I think we try to have, we've talked a lot about the darker, aspects of the show today, but I think the drive of the show is you have this character who doesn't give up. And because of that, the show is infused with hope and optimism. He's going to get back to his family one way or another, one day, 1 week. It's going to happen. And he also has, he has victories, he has setbacks. And the show, because of the humanity of the people in it, you're rooting for them. And I think it has a balance of being real, but not dreary, and not, even though the prison is dark and it's real, there's light in these people, there's light in these characters, there's hope in them, there's things they're aspiring for still, and it's that balance.
Yeah, and hopefully at the end of the day, it's inspirational. It's believing in yourself and not taking no for an answer, and it's fighting for the system, fighting against the system, and that's what this show should be. It should be inspirational. For us, that should be really the big takeaway, because if you spend time with Isaac, it truly is an inspirational story. What he did, I always say this as a producer, it's Rocky, it's Rudy, it's those underdogs who overcoming every single obstacle, and in this case, the obstacles are truly insurmountable to achieve a victory.
And what was great about it for me was even if you've never been arrested or been stopped by the police, or you don't know anybody who's been incarcerated, there are still things that you can draw inspiration from, just from the person that Isaac is, and from the wonderful characters that Hank and the writers have given us to play with and for you to enjoy. So it's it's not just about that. It goes far beyond what it appears to be.
Well, thank you all for being here today, and make sure you guys tune into 4 Live on ABC.
Thank you.
Thank you.